Welcome everybody to this new Business Telling Talk. I'm Antonio, CEO at Business Telling, and today we're very happy and proud to have with us Stephanie Guyader, that is the Senior Director at Carlsberg. Ciao, Stephanie.
Hi, Antonio. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Fantastic.
Sitting here in Copenhagen.
Ah, okay. You are in Copenhagen. Beautiful. Stephanie, I'm very happy to have you, as I said in the introduction, because we've been working together in Pringles, actually, in Geneva. And if I can think about someone that is outstanding on using business storytelling, especially in the sales department or business development, actually your name comes definitely to my mind. So I would like, first of all, to introduce yourself a bit more on what you do, and then to listen some interesting business story from you.
Great, thank you. Well, first, as you know me, I'm a very passionate business leader, sales leader, but as well a commercial strategist. And what I like beyond anything in this, in the many years I worked on commercial and sales is how to build stories that our customers will be able to buy in. And today I am leading value management for Carlsberg Group Global. Value management is treating a lot of data, so it's very data driven. It's about price, promotion, trade terms, mix, and is how do you create more value, of course, for the company, but as well, and most important for the consumer, the shoppers, and the customers. And if you create value for consumers and shoppers, then you will create value for your customers, and then you will create value for the company. So that's what I'm working on, based on a lot of data. It's about value creation.
So it's really, I can call you the value creator then, for the brand you're working for and for the company.
Well, I'm not creating anything. I'm helping 35
You're
markets.
helping. Okay.
I'm helping 35 markets to do it. But yeah, we are looking at value, and in the current world, it's becoming more and more difficult because it's not about, it's about value perception. Yeah, it's not, the price is different versus value perception. And it's about what the consumer and shopper are ready to pay for, what it is worth to pay for, to make sure they are going to come back and to make sure they embrace, what you are selling. And that's the same with customers. At the time of Pringles, we were used to say, we want to catch customer love, right?
Yes.
We want the customers to love us. And that's about it. It's, they have very clear objective and priorities, and you just need to embrace what they are expecting to give them the right story that they will buy. So that's what I like doing. Yeah.
So you were saying, I like the way you said at the end, the right story to create value for them. So when you're saying the right story, how do you start creating the right story? Which is your approach to really have a story that can be effective on, activating the audience?
The first thing is, it's not about yourself. Never. Even when you talk with, I'm talking to market every day. I'm not talking to customer anymore every day, but whether you talk, my market are my customers, it's not about me. It's not about what I think. It's what's, about where they are themselves, and everybody is in a different place in their own journey, what they believe, what they know, what they don't know, and what they have to achieve. Yeah. So I first start to understand that. And then I have a kind of toolkit, and I need to be very agile in my toolkit to activate whatever is going to be relevant for them. And, many times we see people serving the same story over and over to different type of people, and they would be surprised that they don't get a hook, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But people are ready to hear a certain side of the story at a certain time in their own journey. And it's about understanding this journey and coming with the right element in their own journey. And then once I understand where they are, then there is another thing that is very important is in our world, it's not about our brands. They are thinking about the business through categories. And I know that as well because I experienced it myself. I worked 4 years with a retailer in France, Leclerc. One of the things I've been very, very amazed at this time was you are managing much more than a brand. You know, I've been managing 40 categories. I can't remember how many brands, but it was up to 500 different suppliers.
Wow.
So the scale of what you have to think about is very different. It's very different. So then you understand that the point you need to come to those guys is a different angle. So category rather than brand, very important. What is the category growth story and how our brands can contribute to it? Instead of what is the brand growth story and how it's going to build into the category. And this is very important. We need to start with the category. And then, of course, I need to think about the different levers. Those levers would address white space, so true value potential that can be different from one customer to another. And this is where you need to customize your story from one customer to another. That's going to be specific enough. That's going to make it meaningful to them.
Yeah.
And for that, you need to understand their strategy. What is the most important for them, and how you're going to find a common ground, you know, in this story. So, so yeah, that's my way to think about it. Understand your stakeholder, start with the category, and make it specific enough. Of course, data-based to address, to serve a story and a plan that they can buy in. Yeah,
of course. So really relevancy for your audience, if I understood correctly, is really the right way to start with. And Stephanie, I'm very interested now to hear if you have any story to share with us from any experience you had on really effective business storytelling. Sometimes even funny, you know, to face some issues with the audience you're talking with, and then realizing that you can turn it in a strength because you learn something new. So we're really keen to hear from you.
Yeah, the first one that is coming to my mind, because it has been a learning journey for me as well, is a Pringles one.
Oh, love it.
Yes. Well, you know, I worked on this brand many years. So I have a lot of stories on Pringles, but
of course.
This one is very interesting. I was looking for, at this time, I was looking for reframing the value story of the brand. And people maybe forget it, but we know that 15 years ago, the brand was not in the place where it is today. Yeah. And we were looking at this time at a way to strengthen the story, to really emphasize the value of the brand that we could bring to both customers and consumers. And the value is coming as well through point of differentiation. Yeah. Why this brand, as you know, is valuable, is worth to pay this price? What are the point of differentiation that make it different? And then, you know, you would definitely value it. And so I started thinking about, okay, I've started with what was available. And what was available was the very short-term stories, right? And then because I was fairly new on the brand, I became more curious about how we were producing this brand, the packaging, the composition of the different linen of the can. Yeah. And then I discovered another world. I talked to somebody in the plant who were explaining me how they were taking out oxygen from the tube and what was the impact on the life, on shelf of the product, and so on. And I thought, wow, I didn't know all of that. That definitely has a big value. because that's very specific, and that makes the shelf life on Pringles very long,
Very
the
long,
quality
yeah.
very sustainable on the chip versus any other brand. And that's why we do this tube, you know, and that's why, you know, we because to preserve the quality of the product. And I thought that's definitely critical. Yeah, that's critical, and that's a critical part of the price of this brand. So I started, I kept investigating and so on, and then I came to a point where I said, okay, I need to frame a story around that. That's definitely a big component of the story. And so I enriched the story, and I discovered, I thought at the beginning, well, of course, all the markets know that already. They might not say it to their customers, but they know it.
But they know it, yeah.
Well, in fact, I would say I can't remember one people that could remember that.
No way.
People forgot it. It was part of the obvious of the brand,
of
you know?
course, yeah.
To the point that we were not advertising the value of it anymore. So what makes this brand so strong from the key attributes of it were just part of the obvious that we were not advertising anymore. So I thought it was fascinating. So I started to, you don't need a lot. You just need a couple of pages to see to say the story. And so people were very excited that they had something to talk about again on top of everything else. And it had a great impact, especially when we came back with talking about pricing to our customers. And justifying what the consumer really enjoy the brand. That's very specific, pragmatic, and rational attributes that is explaining, you know, the strengths of the equity of the brand. So that's my story. Based on that, I can remember it. You know, there is not 1 week or 1 month I don't think about this story, and I'm saying, okay, Steph, you should keep investigating, be more curious, keep going, keep understanding what this brand is about and how you can translate it into something that is valuable to our customers and consumers.
Something really, I mean, it's interesting you're saying that sometimes we forget. The reason why a brand is, it's important for our shoppers or customers. And you know, at the beginning, it's you keep it in mind, and then somehow it get lost, and you focus on some other aspects that are not probably as important as the one that create the value of the brand. Or so going back to the roots, and it's very important.
You know, there is one aspect that I think it's becoming very common in FMCG company from a consumer point of view that people forget is this. Huge experience of those big companies, everything they have been put into the quality of the product, in a sustainable way across mass production is critical, and you know, to have such high level of quality across such big volume is just remarkable. And that's something we forget, but that's something that is a huge part of the work of the company in the background. We should talk about, you know, that's a know-how. Do you say that? That's a know-how that has a lot of value, and we forget about it. But that's really what we do, you know, in those companies, is we sustain the level of quality, and that's taking a lot of work. So we should say those stories.
You know, I'm happy you're saying that, because in business telling, we usually say that if you focus too much on what you want to say, you drive complexity because you have so many elements you want to share. While if you step back for a second, you really look at why you want to tell that story, why your brand is important, and how you bring to life this brand equity, this brand value, which is your point of difference, and you focus your story on that. You have many less elements you have to talk about, and the fewer are more powerful. So you reduce the complexity, and usually lower complexity, increase actionability. So it's I really heard what you're saying, and it's something that I can see in the business I'm working with. When they step back and they really look at what makes our product different than the others, then all of a sudden the story comes out with much more power, much more engagement, much more, you know, activation for people listening to that. And I have another question for you, Steph. I mean, you were part of the team in Pringles, and I think also in other brands you'll be working for. meeting the buyers, meeting, the buyers at the top level. We're talking about Carrefour, we're talking about Lidl. I remember a lot of conversation, we had with, and when you have, this kind of big deal that are locked centrally, you have the marketing story that, people want to bring to the, all the values of the brand, etc. Then you have the pricing story, then you have the supply chain story. There's so many different elements. How can you really find the right way of mixing these elements to make your story relevant for your customer?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I started with that. I think, those customers are our partners, and we have a common interest, which is creating value for our consumers and shoppers. And we can't do that without their support, because we are selling our product in their stores.
Yeah.
So we are really partners. And as partners, we need to understand each other's strategy and what are our common grounds that will help them to do their best job on our product, on our brands, right? And that's what you do. Your brand strategy is only relevant to what the customer will be able to do with it. Yeah, so it's a filter, and you need to understand this filter that you can, in the best way possible, position your brand, establish it in a way that's going to respect your brand strategy.
Yeah.
And our customers are, very, very well working with us in this way as well, as long as you talk to them in the right way. As long as if you come to them with only a brand story, they just can't make it, because this is not the way they are thinking about it.
Of course.
Yeah? So if we take supply chain, of course, especially in those time of disruption, you can have challenge for your supply chain network. That's another story, and it happened to me many times in the past, especially on Pringles. Yeah, a constraint and supply chain challenge. They can hear your challenge, but they want to know exactly what's happening when, that they can manage it properly, because they have stores to fill and so on. So it's all about transparency. It's all about talking a common language. It's all about aligning strategies. At the end, it's a question of trust. If you don't do all of what I've just said, you can't establish trust, right? So we want to have trust relationship based on trust. So yeah, that's the way. And then when you do that, you make some choice on the topics. And many times, it's challenging for marketing people to understand those choice or the angle we talked about things. And I think, and we certainly had this relationship when we were colleagues. Antonio is challenge each other as marketing people. You need to challenge salespeople on how to think about the brand strategy. But the salespeople have to educate as well in the same way that marketing people educate salespeople on brand. Salespeople have to help marketing people to think about more customers. And then when we do that together and we explain that, this is then becoming magic, because we are able to better serve the right story for our customers. Salespeople only want to do their best to support brand strategy, but they need to do it in a way that is meaningful for their customer, because that's the only way the customer will listen to it.
Of course.
So as long as the company understand that, that's fine, because then the role of the company in the background is to support those salespeople to their job in this way. Yeah. And so how do we translate all of what we are doing internally in a way that is, again, meaningful for customers? Yeah. We need to help salespeople to do that.
Of course. I mean, just to drive clarity on our audience, since they are kind of, the people we are talking to, when you're talking about customer and shoppers, there are two different entities. Customer are the retailers where you sell your product to, and then the shoppers are the one coming to the retailer and buying the product that you sold to them. Because, I mean, for some people, maybe it's confusing. They think it's the same entity, while, I mean, for big brands, it's different. And Steph, you told us a lot about, the relationship with customers and how important it is to have them as a partner. And what's your experience also in the story you create for the shoppers? because, shoppers needs to be activated, engaged, at the end to buy the product. And probably they are not your partner, so they are not as close to your business as the customer. But definitely, the last word you used was trust, really to create trust. I think trust should be both on the customer side, but also on the shopper side. They buy your brand because they believe on your brand, they believe in the values of your brand, they don't want to get disappointed.
Yeah.
So it's what's your experience of really keep these kind of bringing to life these values also for shoppers? What kind of stories do you think, or if you have anything to share?
No, I think, of course, the core of my experience is not about brand equity, but I had the chance to work with a lot of great marketing people who teach me how to think about brand equity. So what I think is very important is that communicating on our brand equity to consumers, so end consumers, is not the same than communicating our brand equity to shoppers.
Yeah.
And so, we have, of course, many different channels to communicate on our brands. And the one that is targeting shoppers are in store or online now.
Yeah.
And we need to think better about the angle. Many times I've seen when we copy paste the main communication message to the
from one touch
in-store.
point. Yeah.
You are smiling, so it sounds to you here, right? We had.
I know exactly what. Before. Yeah, definitely. But go ahead, because I think it's very important what you're saying. Very important.
Yeah, it's critical because when you put the shopper in condition, so whether again it is in store or on screen, you need to think about the journey. You need to think about how the shopper is behaving in store, how much time he has to look at things, and the angle is of course different. So the way, and at our time on Pringles, we talked a lot about a value in store, but of course, at the same discussion I'm currently, sometimes involved in at Carlsberg is how do you communicate the equity of your brand properly in store or on screen for e-commerce? And that's not the same way than when you are watching, a 1 minute thing on Instagram on your brand. Yeah, that's different. Because when I'm watching Instagram, I am in a certain mindset. When I'm doing my shopping, I am in a different mindset.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very important that when we start thinking about brand activation, you inject your channel strategy before and not after. You need to think about brand activation through your channel strategy and not the contrary. And I think too many times we are thinking about brand activation and then, oh, by the way, what is our channel strategy? And then we retrofit our brand activation plan into the channel strategy. And for me, it doesn't work because you start wrong, because you start with thinking by the fact that brand activation is coming through pretty much one single consumer mindset. And then you forget the shopper. If you start with a channel strategy, then you understand the difference between different consumer and shopper profile, and demand space is one of those studies that help us a lot to do that. So then you need to categorize specific channel, what is behind each of the specific channel, what do you want to achieve? And then you think about your brand activation plan. So that's, that's, I think, something that would help a lot to improve brand activation in the future. But again, I'm not an expert in this topic, so I'm just the receiver of the plans as I'm working on commercial strategy and based on my experience.
Well, I mean, probably you think you're not an expert on this field, but I mean, since you are, let's say, the face of the brand for customer, you need to, to show that there is a plan that is able to activate the shopper properly. So I think your experience is really bottom up, is really facing what it works and what doesn't work when this channel strategy is not in place and when it's only on brand communication, try to bring to life the brand. And I think, I remember there was in Procter, was a training for marketeers that was start with the shopper in mind. there was, the path to purchase, how really you start your communication from the moment that the shopper buy the product and put the product on the trolley, and then you step back on every little step, realizing how you can influence at the 0th moment of truth, first moment of truth, whatever, there was a key moment of activating them.
And I think, Antonio, the one thing I just want to add is good stories are consistent. And of course, the challenge of marketing is to keep the brand activation consistent across different channels, although it might not be exactly the same message from a wording point of view. So how do you keep it consistent, but still address different needs at different times? Because I believe that, we talked about fewer, bigger, better earlier, not say anything in your story, so be sharp. But I believe as well that repeat is good, and being consistent and repeat the same message across make you more consistent, and therefore is a big contributor of building trust with your partners, whoever they are.
Course.
So if you are changing your message all the time, then people will think, okay, what's that? Yeah, it's confusing. So yeah, consistency.
Yeah. And Steph, we have only, a bit less than 5 minutes left. So, I would love, to keep listening to your stories, but I would ask you if you can, share 3 or whatever numbers you want, but usually we ask 3 key actionable takeaways out of the story you share with us or the learning that we had from the chat with you. That could be, relevant for our audience. That goes from, younger business startups to big brands, professionals. So based on your experience, which are for you the 3 key elements someone should keep in mind when they want to create an effective business storytelling?
Sure. So I'm going to be consistent. And, and what I said is the first one, very important, is it's not about you. It's about the person you are communicating to. And in order to be meaningful, you need to be clear about where this person is, in terms of mindset, priorities, strategy. Then you can really customize your message to this person. So being meaningful is very important. The second thing is, a lot of things are, we forget about the obvious. So make sure you clearly list all the point of differentiation of your brand, even the obvious, because there is always a lot of value to commercialize them and keep commercializing them on top of the new stuff, the new things. It's the core of your brand, and it's critical to repeat it or people forget, even internally. So repeat the obvious. And the last
important,
thing
even
is,
internally. Just want to highlight that because sometimes, we focus only on, externally, while internally the culture, we were saying that before, but the culture, the energy, the spirit you have internally is most likely what you're going to share externally. So absolutely.
And then the last thing is data are very important. It's not about opinion. It's about fact coming from consumer and shoppers. What will be valuable for them will be for us. And so very important that you base your story on a strong fact, and you structure your story as well from a category point of view, which is broader than your brands, to show that you care about the growth overall and not only the growth of your brands. It's more about category growth and how your brands can contribute to that. That makes your story even more meaningful. So those are the 3 things, Antonio, I would like you to keep in mind.
I think, first of all, thanks for sharing. And indeed, you have been very consistent with the story you share. You share with us and the learning you share with us. So it definitely makes sense. I can really see these 3 key takeouts are fundamental for the way you structure effective business storytelling. So very insightful. And I think it's going to be very pleasant also for the audience to reapply and to really understand the power of these 3 key takeouts. Stephanie, thank you very much. Unfortunately, our time it's running to the end.
Thank you for the opportunity, Antonio. Thank you.
It has been a real pleasure to listen from someone with your experience, how really business storytelling can make a difference, even in sales, not only on brand building or to telling, stories. So I really hope to have another chance in the future to talk about other stories. Meanwhile, I wish you all the best, and I wish you to have great business stories to come along very soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao, Steph. Thank you.